And 1,000. So, if you're new to the channel, I bought an MV Agusta F3. Woo! That is the hotness! It's a 2014 model on new old stock, actually, that had no miles on it at the time, and had been sitting in a warehouse for 4 years, and they just wanted to get rid of it. And the price they were selling it for was just, they were giving it away. And I know I would have regretted not buying it, especially compared to how much a new bikes cost. The deal was just too good for me to pass up. I could not do it. So this video is not a first ride or a first impressions video. I've already done one of those, link in the description. This is a what it's like to live with after 1,000 miles video. I have a much better sense of the bike now that I've lived with it for a while, so I think I can give a better opinion about what it's like to actually live with. If you already watched my first impressions video, some of this might sound a little familiar, but a couple other things have come up that I think people might be interested in. To start, this could be just the honeymoon period, but I have had absolutely no problems with the bike after 1,000 miles, which is kind of what you would hope. It's been problem-free. That never gets old. The things I talked about in my first impressions video, I still dig about the bike. I love the styling. I think it's one of the best looking bikes that's ever been designed. You can tell a lot of care went into the design of this bike because it has so many little bits and pieces that feel custom. Oh, and if you watched my logo video where I counted all the logos on this bike and came up to 20, I actually found another one last weekend when I was washing the bike, right above the rear shock. So, they snuck on 21 MV logos as far as I can tell. Maybe there are more I'm gonna find later. And I still think this is the best handling bike I've ever been on. It feels so planted. I never feel like I'm trying to struggle with the bike to get it to go into corners. Part of that is the geometry, and part of that is the weight, because it's very light in comparison to an F4, for example. And part of that is due to the fact that it has a counter-rotating crank, so it's rotating in the opposite direction of the wheels, so it counteracts that gyroscopic force. The end result is that it turns so well. It is pretty awesome. Now at idle, I'd say the stock exhaust sounds like crap, honestly. Kind of like a bag of rocks rolling down the hill, is what it reminds me of. But once you get on it, the exhaust sounds awesome. I've come to really love the character of the engine. It's a triple cylinder, so it has more torque than a 4-cylinder, but it revs higher and faster than a twin, so it's kind of the best of both worlds if you ask me. MV says it puts out about 148 at the crank, so for a street bike, it's plenty of power. At no point have I felt like this bike is slow. I'm sure if I ever got it to a track, I might feel differently if I was racing against S1000s and R1s, but for a street bike, it is plenty of power. but not the bananas power of a 1000cc bike. That'll just get you in trouble if you're not paying attention. So my first impressions video, the things that stuck out to me that I did not like about this bike, I still do not like. The side mirrors are criminally bad. It is criminal that they could put these on a bike. 2/3 of the mirror is taken up by your elbow, and the 1/3 sliver that you can see vibrates so bad at certain RPMs that it's just a blur behind you. You can't even see anything. You might as well not even have mirrors on this bike. And yes, it is still hot. I wouldn't say it's unrideable like an F4 would be during the summer, where the exhaust is under your seat, but it can still get pretty hot. When I first got the bike, I had a problem with the clutch being so grabby that I was stalling it left and right. And this was probably because it had been sitting in the crate for 4 years. So once I put some more miles on it, after several hundred miles, the clutch got better. Thankfully, I'm not having that problem. The clutch is kind of wearing in, so it's not so grabby. Is grabby even a word? Anyway, the other thing that's kind of jumped out at me as a negative on this bike is the switch gear on the left-hand side. Why did MV Agusta decide to put the horn above the turn signal instead of like every other manufacturer and put the horn underneath the turn signal? Why? It is so annoying. I have lost count of the times I've honked at people when I've tried to cancel my turn signal, or canceled my turn signal when I meant to honk at them. Aprilia, horn below the turn signal. BMW, horn below the turn signal. Ducati, horn below the turn signal. Honda, horn below the turn signal. Triumph, horn below the turn signal. Yamaha, horn below the turn signal. But no, MV Agusta decides it's a great idea to put the horn above the turn signal. Why? Ugh, so annoying. The seating position is typical modern day sport bike. Aggressive, but not ridiculous. The seat is firm, you know, it's very similar to R6, S1000. Like most sport bikes, you're probably not going to want to do a road trip on it. Although I'm the kind of masochist to actually do a road trip on this bike, so stay tuned for that. But I probably would not advise it. I like the narrowness of this bike. Makes it feel very compact when you're riding it. Almost like the older L-twin Ducatis. I think it's pretty comfortable actually compared to other bikes. But I've ridden sport bikes all my life, so I'm very used to it. So it's pretty basic as far as rider aids. There's not a ton of options. It's not like an S1000 or Panigale. Like, it doesn't have electronic suspension. It doesn't have wheelie control. It doesn't have slide control. This particular model doesn't have ABS, so I can't comment on that. And I'm okay with that actually, because it's one less thing to go wrong. I am totally fine with just analog brakes. It does have traction control, so 8 different levels, and it does have engine mapping, so you can switch between 4 different maps. That part's, you know, helpful. That's nice to have, but, you know, MV Agusta is a small company, so they're a few years behind on the cutting edge technology. And I don't think the 2019s have improved on the rider aids either, but someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So this is the same basic setup you'd get if you buy a brand new bike. It also has a quick shifter, just up though. The newer models have quick shifter up and down. This is the first bike I've ever had with a quick shifter. It feels a little clunky to me, like not super smooth, so I honestly don't use it that much. The brakes are not amazing, but I think they're fine for the street. They're not super strong. In fact, it wasn't until I had them bled at the break-in service that they actually came to life a little bit. If you were taking them to the track, I think you probably want stronger brakes, but for the street, they're totally fine. I'd give them a B- on the brakes. I know these bikes have a bit of a bad rap for uneven throttle, and my bike was actually a little twitchy at low throttle settings, at low RPMs. When you just barely have the throttle open, it was really uneven. It sputtered a little bit. Almost had that feeling of like it's running out of gas. But when I brought it in for the break-in service at 600 miles, they updated the mapping, and now it's smooth all the way through the throttle range, which was a nice little improvement. Okay, I'm gonna take a minute to whine about the display. Yes, I hear you. It's a 2014 model, so I can't expect the latest display. But guess what? If you buy a 2019 F3, I think they changed the font size and the background color. So this is the same basic display you're gonna get. I just have display envy. After seeing the new TFT displays from BMW and Ducati, it makes me a little sad. It is, as the kids say, basic. MV is a small company, so you can't really expect them to be on the cutting edge of stuff like that, but hopefully they can update this display for future bikes. So after 1,000 miles, I have no regrets about this bike. I think it's an awesome street bike. Thankfully, I've had no problems so far. Besides a few little annoying things, it's been pretty awesome. If you're interested in seeing what happens after I put on more miles, subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one.